Hello everyone, welcome to the event of Milan Design Market of today. That I have a special guest, Rashmi, with me. That she has a really cool project that's gonna share it with us. That we have the product on sales on Milan Design Market, and I had many questions. I couldn't stay not asking her before, so I asked her some questions beforehand. But I'm gonna share with you her project today, so you can also know about it. Hey, how are you, Rashmi?
I'm good, thank you, Elif. How are you?
I'm good too. Can you tell us about you a little bit?
So I'm from India, and at the moment I live in Hubli, the southern part of India, close to Goa and Bangalore. And I just graduated from my master's program at Royal College of Art. The program was kind of an exciting journey for me because I come from an architecture background, and after coming to the RCA, I kind of really let loose and just started exploring a lot of things. So this project Dross is kind of the culmination of those 2 years, but in a way that it showcases a lot of different things that I've done in the past, and mostly talking about patterns and how we kind of visualize these patterns. That's one thing. And the other thing is the materials that I'm interested in and how the two combine together in one kind of project or space. So that's a little bit about me and my work, I think.
So you have architecture background, but then you find yourself designing materials and products thanks to the university as well. But how did you start to do this project? Because it's a specific project. You need to have a factory in order to see what is the waste, what's going on there, and how did it happen?
So it's an interesting story because it happened because of coronavirus, and this is one of the I think good things that came out of the virus for me, personally speaking. So in March, when we were still doing our master's course, I was working on something else in London, and then immediately had to come back to my hometown in Hubli here. And obviously, because of the way the course is structured in a way that you need to make something and learn through that making. So I just started looking around what I had to make or what I could make around me. And this factory, the steel factory that I worked at, is my family's factory. And we've been doing this business for about 45 years now. So just coming back to my hometown, and I started looking around my ecosystem basically and just realizing the kind of resources I have around me. And the factory has this very peculiar smell, and that smell is the steel slag smell. And that kind of I grew up with. So I was like, okay, maybe there is something here, and I haven't really tapped into that potential of this waste material. And so just started looking into that and researching steel slag. Yeah.
So I'm shocked because I thought you've been actually researching about it since so long, because the production, the research, the material, everything, it looks like that it's been there since really long time. But I think it's also because you've been there for all your life, basically. You grew up, so it's not like you just come up with the idea to go to a factory or stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I ask you, how did you, because steel, for me, what I know with my knowledge, it was something that's 100%, let's say, recyclable. If you have a steel, you melt it, you use it. But then I asked you, how you say that there's this waste of the steel in the factory. How did you find it out? And I want to hear again, how does it work?
So I think I'll answer this in two parts. The first part is how I did this in such short a time. I think it's because of the people of the factory. This is a complete collaboration project between the people who work in the factory workers, and the designer. And I think the reason why this happened was because they have the knowledge of the material, they have the knowledge of the resources, and they know everything that there is to know about this material. Even today, after having done this project, I trust their instincts about the material more than I do about myself. So I think that exchange of information was really interesting for the way the project went about. And the second question was how the steel material is sort of about the recyclability of it. I think it's not the steel that we're kind of looking at in this project, it's the byproduct when it comes to the melting of the steel. So this particular factory is a steel scrap unit. So what happens is scrap from our homes, construction industries come to this factory, and then you melt that steel in a furnace, an induction furnace. So when you melt that steel, there's all sorts of impure materials that you would have probably used to make your, let's say, a window, or let's say a bicycle. So there's tons of steel in the bicycle, but there's also other metals that you would have used to make the bicycle. And when you segregate all of these metals and put it in the induction furnace, everything apart from steel becomes the slag, and everything that's not the steel kind of forms like a rocky foam above the steel because it's lighter, and then that gets pushed out of the furnace. So that's
Okay,
the
so
black part.
that concrete looking material
No,
is, no, I'm
no,
wrong.
no. So there's two materials. There's two
Okay.
materials. So I was getting to it. There's two materials. The first is steel slag, which comes out of melting the metal and the byproduct of it. And the second one is the quartz powder, which is the concrete looking, the white one.
Okay.
And this quartz powder is the induction furnace lining. So the two components of this project are quartz powder and slag. And the quartz powder is basically used as a lining material to protect the furnace from melting. And it's kind of pushed into the furnace, and then they let it heat a little bit so that it forms a thick layer. And that then you melt the metal in that kind of lining of the quartz powder. So what happens is after multiple rounds of lining this material, heating the steel, the power or the quality that is required to sustain that heat goes away for the quartz powder. So they throw that out, and that becomes the white kind of waste material that we're looking at, the big rock of quartz waste. So there's those two
Okay.
things that form this.
Okay. I also asked you about the heat before, like
Mhm.
because you mentioned that you're using also the heat that is already in the factory,
Yeah,
so you
yeah.
don't waste. Let's say,
Mhm.
um, and you told me about that you were choosing the time slots when it was available, that there was
Yeah.
still the heat and stuff. But I think let's do something. Let's show what we're talking about, and we can
Okay.
continue. I think it's better so people will see
Yeah.
what we're physically talking about.
Right. Okay. Let me just put that on presentation. Okay. So we've, I think, kind of talked about all of this, the material. I'll skip to the core of the project. So, like I said, the quartz powder and steel slag. So the white powder is what I was talking about earlier. And the way that I've used this is from the scrap that I found in the yard of the factory. So whatever was there, pipes, boxes, bottles, anything that came out of steel waste, they form the kind of mold for the material and the product. And again, the residual heat that you were talking about, Elif, that's the residual heat from the furnace in the factory. And this is about 900 to 1200 degrees Celsius that runs in the factory. And what happens is after they've melted the steel, they put the steel ingots in this. So that's for a rolling mill. And what happens is because the rolling mill just runs for a certain amount of time, but they need it to a certain temperature. This is that furnace where there's tons of residual heat that we kind of don't know what to do with. So that's what the project is utilizing. Um, I'll skip to the visuals of the project, really. Like I said, everything that came from the scrapyard, so like a tiffin box or like a part of a window, and these are all angles that come from the waste material. These are all the,
Um, Yeah, I'm going to ask
yeah.
you a question actually.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah,
what you do is look around and find
yeah,
what is inspiring you and also designing it, because putting all the pieces together is the design process. So, you don't work on the
right.
computer or whatever, but you work on
Yeah,
the visuals that you have around, right? It's
yeah,
like
yeah,
it's a lot of
yeah.
time to understand.
Yeah, it's kind of like a adventurous activity when I go to the scrapyard because I'm just like looking into what I can find that can fit into this piece or that piece, and then I've made kind of my own pile of like, okay, these are the things that go together in that sense. So it's a very fun activity for me. That's the most exciting part of this project, I guess, because that's my main bit into designing the product and how it looks and really how it responds to the aesthetics of at least if not the Indian market, anywhere else. What do people really relate to? And it's basic, simple, puristic shapes: circle, semicircle, square. It's not very complicated because these come from those objects that are in that
I
scrapyard.
don't agree with you because I don't think the shapes are super simple or basic. Obviously, they're like because it looks like that it really comes from that atmosphere where the material comes from because
Hmm.
you understand the shapes. It looks like
Yeah,
it's part of it, but at the
yeah,
same time, it has a super modern look, and it's
yeah.
not like okay, I did a table with four legs or whatever. So I think there's also you work with also with the different combinations of the colors. So while
Right.
doing the do you think beforehand or after having the mold you say okay I'm gonna color this side with this material and I'm gonna or how does it work?
I think it depends on the mold that I get because certain molds don't take enough material of either. So there's only certain colors that work with some ones because if there's a flimsy mold, it'll not work for slag. But if it's a strong one, it works for quartz. And then I have to kind of mix it up and see, if this is strong enough for this material. So it really depends on what I find in that thing in the scrap to influence what comes out as a visual.
But they also like your collection has like similar looks and it has like
Hmm.
it really looks like it's a collection like you did the malls and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Do you
Yeah.
think if you want to change completely the look with the same materials can you create
Yeah.
something completely different than this result or you think it will always with the materials you find there it will be
Yeah.
always with the continuity of the same kind of collection?
No, I think there's no limitation at all in that sense. I think it's a limitation that I've put for the project and kind of just a designer's choice and freedom that I've taken. But because there's all sorts of scrap coming in from homes, from railways, from construction industries, from old dilapidated structures. So there's like household stuff from the kitchen, from the bathroom, everything that you can imagine is in that pile of waste. So that's kind of the main reason to bring this forward because we don't realize what happens behind the project. We only see the end product. So bringing these shapes forward is something like I was talking about patterns, just coming forward and talking about those shapes and those objects and how we really consume things in our life.
Yeah, so
So
let's continue the
yeah, I'll
presentation.
continue.
Mhm.
So this again is just like we discussed, a composition of furniture. I started with furniture because I think it was much easier to imagine where I would kind of use it in a larger sense of space. And this is the floor table. These are basically four pipes that I found cut up and kind of put them together. And like you see on top here, that's a tiffin box that used to be, and that's the window pane that used to be. um, this is one of my favorite ones. It's kind of an experimental one because we were trying to also kind of see where I could use engravings and see what could really how the material could really function and react to your processes. So that was a really interesting
Yeah,
experiment.
actually, this was one
Yeah,
when you said it's so simple that I was thinking like in my mind of this one that of course
yeah,
there's it's not a super simple shape. It has yeah, it has a squared, it has a cylinder, but I think there's a huge aesthetic behind the look of this
yeah,
product.
yeah,
And I now seeing because this image is also really effective, like it's from the workers that they're there and then they're still using it and it's an really cool product. How do they think of it? Because most of the time they don't appreciate or they got like they don't expect from
yeah.
something like this that can be done out of what is there. So what are their comments? Because
So
they
I
say,
think, yeah.
like
I think the first kind of response that I got was obviously not very positive because nobody's thought of using this in a household setup, and because they've been working with it for their lifetime in that factory, they don't really see that this could actually be in their home. So that was the reason why I kind of approached them with this thing, because I thought that maybe it could, if there's a tile that's broken in your house, this material could potentially replace that tile and be in that space, and you would be self-sustainable in a way that you have the material, you have the resources, you have the knowledge, all you have to do is make it yourself, and that was the reason why we kind of started this project, because this is really for their space. It initially started as that, at least. And just kind of having, we have this right now in the factory, and it's kind of there in their social spaces and stuff like that, so it's quite nice. I'll show you a picture from the next one. So this the person who was in the model, who was in the picture, he kind of was really excited about it, and every time he kind of saw this, he was like, "Can I take a picture with this? Can I do that?" And he also had lunch with it once, and then he was like, "I really love this. It's really brightened up the space for me and everything." So it's quite nice to hear those things. Yeah,
It's amazing. It's really, really amazing. And also the pieces are like to be honest, like also the design, the colors, like the simple choice that you
yeah,
did is communicating a lot. And I'm glad that they're also appreciating. Obviously, when
yeah,
something is too simple, doing something too simple as a look, the way
yeah,
they sometimes it's hard to appreciate it for people who is
yeah.
not coming from the same background. But
I think
still,
I agree. Yeah.
no, say go ahead.
No, I was saying I think I agree with you, because it's quite hard at first, because also it's not very polished, it's not sleek, it's not super clean. And I think that's also one of the reasons why I let it be like that kind of rough, rustic kind of look, because I didn't want it to be super polished. I didn't want it to reflect something where it's not, and where it's not from. And that has been a real challenge to convince people that this is also a form of beauty, and it's also sort of something that you can own, because it talks about a beautiful story, it talks about a beautiful setting, um, not
Yeah.
just like shiny things.
Actually, that's the thing, because doing polished things or the things that they're done in factories, not born in
Mhm.
factories. Let's say, okay, I have a wood factory and I'm gonna do a wood table.
Yeah,
Like to have clean surfaces or like cuts, it's much easier because this actually asks you more research, more differentiation from the other things. Like you have to think of the stamp, and you have to think of the material and the angle and everything they're
yeah,
particular. So finding like things that are more smooth and polished, like it's, let's say it's not the interesting material anymore. I think we
yeah,
all agree with this we are all in research of finding something new
yeah.
than something
No,
there.
absolutely. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Um, I think I'll just move on with the smaller bits. So what happened was, I think all of this till here was part of the research project that I did at RCA, and I took some time off and started realizing what this project could really be in a house and in a home, and how I could really tell the story, because it's a story in a project, yes, but until you own one, or until you have one with you, you don't really understand it. You don't want to understand it. Yeah, it looks pleasing, but you need to know the whole picture. So I think I started looking when Milan Design Market kind of approached me, and I started thinking that maybe this is a good opportunity to kind of put it out in somebody's home. And I thought that I started looking at smaller things, and then maybe much more feasible stuff. So this is one of my earliest sort of exploration, and I call it Russian dolls, because obviously of the look, and it's quite obvious in that sense. And this is a sculptural series that we did. Just again, the plates and the ball that's on the top, both are metal, and they are both found in the factory. It's all the waste that is in the factory, and the base of the material is, the white is quartz and the black one is slag. So this is one of the first ones. And then This is lalki. It's a funnel, as you can see, and lalki is funnel in the regional language. So this was something I also wanted to reflect the regionality of this project and where it's coming from. Of course, it really is dependent on how you use this. I mean, it's a funnel and it's a base, so you can use it however you like. But this was kind of where I was going with it.
So it's
Uh, yeah.
water resistance. How does it work with the water?
It is water resistant. Yeah, it is water resistant. And I've sealed the funnel at the bottom with the welding machine in the factory. So you can use the funnel as it is also, but not as a funnel, but as a container.
Yeah,
So it doesn't drain the material at the bottom. This is a bigger one of the same collection.
really cool.
This is a Dibby collection, and Dibby again in the local language means a box. And this was something that I was trying very differently because, like you saw in the earlier picture here, this one is what is the shape of the Dibby. So that box really is this. It forms the inside of it, and then I put in another one to kind of make the whole. So just experimenting with the colors and seeing if layers are possible. With this one, at least it was quite nice because what happens is that the slag is quite thin, so it needs to have a thick base, which is why I took that as the base. And then the quartz is much more workable, so it formed the top. So like to answer your previous question again, the colors really depend on what happens with the material. So that's the reflection of that. Um, and this is a pyala, which means a cup or something you drink out of. So this is a reflection of that in a
Cool.
local sort of aesthetic. And this is panai. This is again a very, very abstract sort of understanding of what this material can do and be in your home and just have a space. So this is sort of what I have begun with in the past month for this project, and this is where I'm at the moment. But there's so much more that I think is with this sort of material that can go forward.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
you can do, I think that's what I was thinking. It's just the beginning, like, because I've was more focused of the first images you showed to us, like the table, the coffee table and stuff. And then
Yeah.
seeing this, that actually it's just got online like after the first other
Yeah.
collection you had. So you already started to look from other side and look for other collections. That's what I was asking to you previously. So I
Mm.
think it's an amazing way of approaching to design. And also for the people who are there, like I know many people, because with Milan Design Market we also do physical events, and they come on purpose and look for products that are self-produced, let's say, like they are not creating more waste to the world. And the package, even they ask for the packaging, like there are people caring about it. It's not just words. So I think having more products on the market, not just
Yeah.
in the experimenter part, is
Yeah.
it should be also like it. We need also this, like we
Yeah.
need products like you are doing, not just the research on, because I know people who are demanding on it. It's not just,
Yeah.
I did it because it's
Yeah.
nice.
I think also from a consumer's point of view, I don't think it's the fault of the consumer really, because it's our duty as designers or manufacturers or production people to really educate the consumer about it. And so what will happen with this series is that whoever kind of purchases something will get like an information sheet. It's not going to be boring. It's not going to be a nutritional fact table. It'll be an interesting kind of layout where you can see how much slag you sort of saved from going into landfill, what's the weight, what's the really value of what you have kind of done, and the story behind where that shape is coming from. So I think that's a nice little information packet that also the consumer will receive with this project.
Perfect. Do you want to add something, because we are like over of our time? So
I'm good, thank you.
okay, thank you very much being here and then telling us about your project product. And I'm saying to the ones who are watching us or who are going to watch us after, that they can find these products on Milan Design Market. They're on the market, on sales. And I know if someone is interested, can always ask like there are people interested, they can always ask to us or to you eventually for more information. And I'm gonna add the link down so they can also go and see your page, both Isola page and both Milan Design Market product page. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much. This has been a pleasure.
I hope we meet somehow, like after this pandemic gets over in Milan, or hopefully also I would love to visit India.
Yeah. Yes. All right. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Ciao.